Hey everyone, Murphy Game Dev here, and this week I'm going to be talking about how I made this simple rock, paper, scissors game. Could be super easy, so let's go ahead and get into it. Our first step here is just going to be to set up the control flow for the project. This is just going to be the order in which our game operates itself, and the general flow from scene to scene. It might seem like it's kind of silly to do for a smaller project like this, but I find that it saves a lot of time in the long run if you learn how to practice this early on, so let's get into it. What I'm showing on the screen now is a very quick representation of what I plan to do for the game eventually. It helps show that we could easily skip diagramming in a game like this, but since I eventually want to add expandable properties, maybe even add shapes, add multiplayer, as we'll talk about later, I want something a little bit more complicated and robust. This is going to be a quick 10-minute process to figure out about how I want it to compare results for a round of rock, paper, scissors. So instead of this simple idea, let's go ahead and think about how the game that we're making works. In this case, we're replicating a game, and it's very easy to think about how the original works. Rock, paper, scissors contains what are called shapes. There's rock, paper, and scissors. Easy as that. They each have a win-loss relationship with another shape. Rock beats scissors, paper beats rock, scissors beats paper. Let's talk about control flow for this project. I just start with a main scene to tell my program where to start. It's a convention that goes back to C, and for that I'll also have a main menu that lets the player determine how many rounds they're going to be playing. And when they click Start Game, I'll have a game controller to handle all of the logic involved in managing a match of rock, paper, scissors. Think of this as a level in your typical video game. I'll then add a scene that allows players to select the shape they want to play, with the ability to confirm that shape or even just concede to return to the main menu. This will help separate the animations and player input revolving around selecting a shape all the way down to one scene. Finally, I just need one more scene to help process the events of the round. If the round is ended, it will allow the player to replay or return to the main menu again. Otherwise, it's just going to go back to the shape selection for the next round. This behavior defines the entire gameplay loop, and it really is just as simple as going back and forth between the two scenes until the match has ended or a player exits manually. So, this flow might seem a little overkill for a smaller project, but it's my preferred method as each class remains really encapsulated, and if I want to add multiplayer, new mechanics, new shapes, I should be able to add any of those really easily in the future due to how well each thing is kind of separated out into its own scene. This is really, though, not my typical way of handling scenes in Godot. Usually I would handle them through states, and a state machine called a scene manager. I'll show how that control flow looks here, but I decided it was unnecessary for the current iteration of this project. I'll be using plenty more state machines and a lot more of my devlogs, but for the time being, I'm going to go with the simpler control flow as it kind of lends itself to a quick and easy prototyping for the project. Now that we're in the project, it really is just as simple as following that control flow that I labeled out earlier. We have our main game controller, main menu, and round windows for processing what happens in a round. I went ahead and grabbed some shaders and a couple visual effects to add on to the fist sprite that you see here, which is just a screen cap of my own hand that's been edited in A-Sprite. I'm not really much of an artist, so a lot of my assets tend to be pretty bare bones for now, but all that being said, that really is just about the entire project. I'm pretty happy with how it turns out. We just need to set the number of wins up, and then the player is given an option to select each one of their shapes until it's pitted against another one in some strange animations. I'm really happy with how this one turned out, and if you guys are at all interested in grabbing the code for any of the shaders or any of the general processing, it is all public on my GitHub, link in the description below, so feel free to check that out. With all that being said, this is the first in the series out of the way. I've gone ahead and shown footage here of two CPUs fighting 50 rounds straight while I talk about how the rest of this challenge is going to work. I really am going to attempt to make 25 games this year. The scale of those might be as small as this, or I might spend a little bit more time on them. Could be demos, it could be full games. But I really like this project, and I think I'm going to go ahead with it. If you're interested in following that at all, check out my Patreon, where I'll be posting about it and probably holding votes on the future video topics. And with all that being said, you guys have a great one. Thanks so much for watching.